I'm going to talk about leadership and my journey in life, trying to be a better leader each year. When I was very young, I remember my father telling me that, Dennis, if one day you are in a gang, you have to be the leader of the gang. And that starts the journey of how I learned to become a leader. However, I was naturally an introvert. I know I enjoy my own personal time, even high school, even university time. I have a lot of my introvert work the way I think. So let's come to today. In the Everly group, we have 5 DNAs, right? These are DNA, values and beliefs. We are very curious people. We are resourceful. We are thorough. And we are nurturing. And finally, we are genuine. And the reason I'm starting with our DNA is that everything we do as a leader in the end must come and reinforce our DNA. So the journey starts with what do we look for in a leader? Yeah. And as we move the first step, what is the first step a leader must establish? Right. So you read many books about how to be a leader, etc. And the word is actually you have to respect. Yeah. So to earn respect, typically the leader has authority based on the position that he has. Authority is given by the position, but it's only effective in the short term. If you just use authority to authority, they will follow you, but once they are good, they learn everything they don't like you as an authoritarian, they will leave. You can also gain respect, but respect has to be earned. So in order to gain respect, you have to use influence. And I'm going to share with you that by using influence, that as a leader, you are effective in the long run. So the challenge for a leader is balancing between authority and influence and when to use each one. Right? When I use Hay Management Company to do training for us, etc., there are actually 6 areas that a manager performs. One is planning, organizing, decision making, communication, being a leader, and finally control. Right. So let's go through one by one whether authority or influence is a better way of leading each process. For planning, you will see a lot of top-down planning in the company, but it never works because how can one person know it all? So in planning, you have to use influence. You've got to inject the whole team to contribute to the success of the vision, the mission, etc., and what needs to be done in the company. So you have no choice but use influence. Right. So, but then we move on. Hopefully you can get all your people excited about working together. How about in organizing? Again, should you individually organize? I'm sure you have gone through experience where if you organize yourself, it doesn't work. Again, it is influence, how to work together so that everybody help influence, using influence and organize the plan in a way that you can implement. So in the process of planning and organizing, you have to do decision making, right? So which do you use? Do you use authority or do you use influence? So my experience is like this. If you have all the facts on the table, influence is good enough, right? Because when the facts are on the table and the facts are accurate, you can actually, the solution really stands out. I was in commodity trading, and then even in commodity trading, when we get all the facts on the table, we tend to have an agreement on what action we should take as a team. Now, the only thing about strategic planning is in decision making is when you're making strategic changes. So supposing based on all the data you have, you are going to the direction of the right. But when you look at the trends coming up, you as a leader feel that everything is changing, we have to turn left to be successful in the long run. So there are cases like that, and when that happens, you have to move to authority. And the way we structure authority is that you got to stand up in front of everyone and say, look, guys, we need to go left. And if you don't believe me, I will take the responsibility. So you must take the responsibility in front of everyone and say that if we messed up, I am responsible. So for me, leading the Everly Group over the 34 years the company existence, there are only about 3, maximum 4 times where the team wants to go right, but I feel the right decision is to go left. And I made the decision, but I make a decision in a different way. I said, I will convince every person in the company. So I took 6 months, a time of 6 months, talking to every hotel that we manage, all the senior people, and they are supposed to communicate with lower people. And it's very clear to everyone that I'm the one in trouble if the decision didn't work. But luckily, the 3-4 decisions that I had to change strategically works out well. And in the end, after 1 year, everyone say, wow, thank you. That was the right thing we should have done, because everything I do is not unorthodox. Right? The next area is communication. Right? In communication, better to use influence because you gain the respect of everyone. Right? Unless you are out of time. Let's say if there's a fire or whatever that is very short term, you have to use authorities to say get it done now because we have no time. Yeah. And how about as a leader? Actually, it's similar to communication. A leader basically leads through his influence power, because basically what you want to do is you want people to be motivated while working without your need to be there. And the last part of the role as a manager is control. All right. So in control, it's like what I explained in Aim Fast for Success. There are 3 types of workers. The high achievers, basically you only use influence. The poor performers, no choice, you have to use authority. And the middle performer is using a combination of influence and authority to get the job done. So let's move on. When I look at all this, I've learned it's good, but what are the things we need to do to be the leader that people would like to follow, right? I've been talking about respect, but in order to gain respect, you must establish a rapport. And you can read many books on gaining respect, and they say, listen, how to listen, repeat what you say. You know, to me, that is very difficult for the average person to understand. So I came with this idea. So it's to speak as equal the first time and all the time. That means I must put myself to the level that you belong to, and we speak as equal. That means if I'm talking to a janitor, I must imagine I'm a janitor and talk to him as a janitor. And this way, when I bring myself down, I'm showing warmth and concern as an equal human being. Even I meet a beggar on the street and I need to talk to him, I must imagine that I'm a beggar and how I would talk to him, right? And that way I establish a connection and gain the respect this way. And not only must you do it the first time, you must do it all the time, right? After gaining respect, the next thing we want to do basically is, we read many leadership books, they say that you must listen. And they say, okay, listen with repeat. And how do you make the person feel that he has been listened to? So that, in principle, is very good, but in practice, very hard to understand how to do it, right? So I'm going to teach you a superior way and a thorough way of listening. I came up with the idea of listen with 8 ears. The 8 ears are the 8 functional areas: marketing and sales, engineering and production, human resource personnel, finance and accounting. So let us give a problem. Let's say somebody says, oh, all the things we produce, the defect rate is too high. We have too much rejection. So if it is a guy from production, he said, oh, production process is very bad. He's only focused on that. The person in personnel human resource said, oh, maybe we hired the wrong person. Or maybe we don't give adequate compensation. Right? The human resource person will say, oh, maybe we didn't train him well and we don't have a future for him. Right? And then in engineering, will think, oh, maybe the work process is faulty. Right? And then the accounting person will say, wow, that's a lot more work for me. And finally, the finance person will say, oh, we're going to lose money. So what we want to do is put on the different hats, these 8 hats, and listen to the problem, right? So if you put the perspective of the example I give, instead of just from production point of view, you use 8 areas to listen to it. Firstly, you have listened with patience, right? Number 2, that means the person feels he is listened to. Number 2, you have a lot of questions to ask. What happened like that? What happened like that? So when you ask question back, the person telling you the issue will feel that, wow, this person is truly, truly listening to me and even challenging me on what I know and do not know. Now, after you do that, to summarize it all, you got to come and look at it from the higher level, the helicopter view, and look at the helicopter view to understand what's going on and say, what is the fundamental issue? And you must be able to explain the problem in a layman's term, because if you can explain in a layman's term, you truly has understand the problem, because it's so simple to explain to a person. The third step is there a pattern or is it a noise? Okay. So the example I give now, the production not up to standard. So maybe it's just one day that one equipment problem and then you repair it and no more problem. So to me, that is just a noise, right? Or you just have a person who is sick and he didn't want to work that day, right? So basically you need to dig into it more to see, is it a noise or is it a pattern? So for example, a pattern is that there could be 2 patterns. The same guy, he come to produce, every time he's in production, there's a problem. Then you know the pattern is confirming that you have a lousy worker, right? Then you see, based on that pattern, is it a training issue? Then you dig deeper, right? So basically, when you have a pattern, you confirm that you have an issue, right? Okay, so you know already you're moving down the line. After you know there's a pattern and you collect data, the next question, which sometimes I also struggle with myself, is, do I have enough knowledge to solve the problem? I find that this is one of the most difficult questions to ask, because you must have some humility and self-reflection, right? And ask yourself, because a lot of bosses, they just want to make the decision. In fact, they don't have enough knowledge, they still want to make the decision. So the question is that if you ask yourself that and you said, no, I don't have enough knowledge, the question becomes, where do you find the resource who has, right? So you have to go and look for somebody who can help you. Yeah. Once you do that, then the next question to solve it as a leader is, I'm going to introduce the word CAPI, and that's from the Adizes Institute. Do I alone have CAPI? What is CAPI? C-A-P-I, A stands for authority. Right? It's determined by the position you're holding. I have the authority to make this decision. I have the power to hire and sack this guy. Right? Or I have the power to decide up to 1,000 ringgit, whatever is authority. Do I have the power to decide? Yes, that is under my area. And finally, do I have enough influence, enough knowledge to solve the problem? That means you alone can solve the problem. If the answer is yes, you proceed to solve the problem. Okay, but now let me explain a little bit deeper. Let us say, using this explanation, you want to lose weight, you are overweight, right? So, do you have authority over yourself? Yes, you have authority. You decide what to do with your life. The power is somebody who can say, I will do it, but never do it. Right? That's in the team. But this is your life, so you can say, okay, I have the power also, I want to do it. The next step is you find out that you cannot lose weight. Why? Because you don't have enough knowledge, right? You didn't get because there are many complexity in weight loss, the food you eat, the exercise you do, right, etc. Right? So a gap is missing. So if one person, so in this case, although you have the authority and power over yourself, you don't have enough influence, you've got to get somebody to come into the team to help you with it, right? So work is the same thing. So if one person do not have CAPI, you have to form a team which consists of the person who has authority, the people who will implement, they have to be in the team, because otherwise you decide and nobody will implement, or one person will not implement. And finally, look for people who has the knowledge. This may include outsider, consultant, etc. Or you may have to find somebody not in the immediate team, but he know how to convince the few key people. So when you form the team, then you have a team working process and go and brainstorm and solve the problem, right? So once you have the team, or you are going to solve the problem alone, the next important thing you do is collect the facts, because there's no point in chasing false information. When you collect the facts, you just look at it. If it is yourself, you look at it. If it is a team, you put the facts on the table, and everybody can challenge the fact. So if the team agree on the fact, you can then move on to do the analysis. And here I'm also introducing you analyze with 8 eyes. You analyze from marketing and sales point of view, engineering production point of view, human resource personnel, and accounting. And normally we make decision in the end is based on the financial trade-off, right? So when you use this analysis, and we have many analytical methods, we send everyone for training. There are many analytical methods that we introduce in the company. And you can use all those tools for analyzing what needs to be done. And when you are analyzing, you must again take the helicopter view. Look at the big picture and ask yourself, will it solve the fundamental issue? And if you can solve the fundamental issue, you're on track, and you must be able to explain it in the layman's term. And again, the same thing. If you cannot explain it in the layman's term, you really don't know the answer, right? So then let us look at implementation in terms of important versus urgent, right? So if something is very high in important and high in urgency, right, is the top right matrix, you have to do it yourself and immediately, okay? If it fall on the bottom left, which is low important and low urgency, you don't need to do it. There's no point. There's no need to do it, right? And then you have a high important but low urgency. Example is planning issue, or you use the Pareto's law to evaluate whether it is important or not. So those type of jobs are important but not urgent, right? So if you don't do it, what happens? If you don't do it and then you don't do it, it reaches a point where the urgency moves from slow to high. That means you move a red arrow to the right, and in the end you still must do it. So basically, it's best to fix the date so they get it done. Give you an example. For our company's strategic planning processes, the date we use to do meeting, our quarterly development meeting, all our meeting dates, we have an algorithm. And the algorithm allows us to know what are all our planning dates for the next 10 years. And then it just keeps going because the algorithm works. They know third week, they know what we do in January, what we do in April, what we do in July, and what we do in October. So all fixed, right? So it works like a clockwork. And finally, on the bottom right, not very important, low important, but high urgency. Typically, that is a area where you delegate to people. Right? So if you have people reporting to you, you can delegate. But sometimes your people may also be very busy. So we teach all our people how to delegate sideways. Delegate sideways is like this. In all our hotels, we know when is a busy period and when is a free period. Example, front office, in the morning is checkout, right? Around lunchtime, a lot of checkout, okay? Post lunchtime, a few people will check in. Maybe in the morning, there will be 1 or 2 check-in, but it's not coming en masse. And roughly around 5 to around 6:37, the people start to check in because it's the end of the day, they came back for work and then the check-in will be busy. So we know there are gaps, say probably somewhere between 9:30 until around noon, they are very free, right? So what you can do by delegating sideways is, if you need their skill, you as a department go and train them in that skill, and you just say that if I need you, please come and help me. Same thing in the restaurant. Restaurants are busy breakfast time, and then they have a gap before lunchtime, and then a gap again before dinner time. So this gap again. So let me give you other example. The only thing are the accounting people. Accounting people are the busiest during closing. At closing, you don't disturb it. But that is why we also implement lean manufacturing so that they do their work a little bit every day. So they spread out their workload throughout the whole month rather than just waiting for the last few days. Right. So this is how we do, but there's also something else I need to share with you. In maintenance, typically you have a maintenance department, but you have a big problem because some jobs are urgent because it doesn't work or guest complain, you got to serve to and get it done. But some jobs are preventive maintenance, it has to be done, right? So it's important but not urgent, right? So structurally, we find in all our hotels, especially the bigger hotel, the maintenance team has to be split. The one handling emergency, they are handling the customer's needs immediately. And then the preventive maintenance people is maintaining things. They have a schedule to work against, and then they get it done, and then nothing will go wrong, right? So that's how we split. Sometimes we change the structure so that things become clear for everyone. Another thing you need to learn about making a decision is whether it's a cost-benefit study, right? If a problem costs you, 1,000, and to solve it, you only benefit 100. That means the cost is 10 times the benefit. Yeah? You don't do it. Significant is when the cost is 1,000 and the benefit is also 1,000. So cost and benefit equal. So again, why do you want to do? Unless you're so free and nothing else to do, right? And grave is when the cost is 100, benefit is 1,000. So you have a high payoff, then you must do it now, right? So let's move on. Now you start to solve the problem, you start to be able to explain, then you have to do some checking. Is the problem strategic? If it is strategic, who needs to buy in? You got people who are the power, who can not block you from handling. The next thing you have to look is how to communicate what you're going to do down the line. And third element is how do you plan the tactical thing, right? Because for the people implementing, it has to be tactics, right? So I can share with you that when I had business failure 40 years ago, I was thinking through the reasons I failed. I learned a few things about how I work. I have very good plans, but I didn't spend enough in terms of organizing and specifying all the tactical details. So implementation become a problem. So basically, I came to a saying that all our people, when it comes to tactical implementation, This is detail until no further detail left. This is very key. So although I'm not really that organized, I can outthink people in terms of details. Then you look at who are the implementers. Yeah. And you have to immediately decide who is going to be the one person who is going to be accountable for the implement. You must specify the name, because without one person responsible, it won't be done. Yeah. Name the team that reports to the person. That you give them a name and they will work as a team. You set the KPIs for the decision, and also what should be the management information system you have to install in place. And then you decide on the reporting cycle. Because as they implement, they have to report their progress to the bosses, including the number one. So to make the decision, right, typically when people make decision, you have two groups. You have the first position, which is yourself, and the second position are the people you're working against. So position A and position B, chances are you won't agree, right? So the boss in this pictorial is the judge there, the lady judge there, and you can see that she is peeping through her eye blinders. And I like this picture because it shows that this judge is biased. It could be biased you or it could bias the team. So you cannot trust that the boss will make the decision for the good of the organization, right? So you then have to have a judge from the fourth position. This is a judge who is judging the judge, and plus whether the position presented on the first and second position are fair. And the way this person will look at it is, how does it affect all our stakeholders, right? It looks at our values and belief, right? And goals and objectives, and say, okay, does it follow our values and belief? Is it in harmony with also our goals and objectives? So when everything is then balanced, the fourth position is he will decide what is from the point of view of what is the best interest of the organization, so that we can make a good decision. So I'm just, so basically, point number 8 is judge and decide from the fourth position and align to the organization. Yeah. Alignment of decision. So in more detail, does the decision answer these 3 questions positively? Does this decision align with our stated values? Does this decision advance our stated goals and objectives? And does this decision reflect the best interest of the stakeholder? So then you make the decision. So step number 9 is there time for feedback? Not everything is very urgent. So especially when you're planning and making a decision. So if there's time for feedback, you should go and ask for feedback from the rest of the organization to all those departments who will be affected. Yeah. Things like policy decision. What are your goals for the quarter? Yeah. And in our company, we promise to change our best practice within 3 months for that reason. We get everyone discussing. At the end of 3 months, everybody come back and we make a decision, feedback. So very important to get feedback so that everybody feel engaged and support the decision. Yeah. So finally, the 10 is adjust the decision and implement. Right. So adjust the decision based on the feedback and implement the decision. Yeah. So I summarize here in this sheet for you the 10 tenets of a leader people love to follow. Speak as equal the first time and all the time. Listen with 8 ears. Is there a pattern or is just a noise? Do I have enough knowledge? Do I alone have CAPI? What are the facts? Analyze with 8 ears. Judge and decide from the fourth. Is there time for feedback? And adjust the decision. So how does it impact the reaction of followers, peers, and the leader? So if you can follow these 10 steps, for the follower it's like this. Their feeling is they feel they belong to the organization. Their thought process is that the company is fair. And how does it affect respect? You respect each other more, they respect the organization more. Your peers, their peers say, oh, okay, now I feel good because we are working as a team. The thought is also, yes, we are in teamwork. And respect also, we keep building on it as a team. How about the leader? The leader must have the feeling of sharing is caring. But there's one thing about the leader. The leader has to give up his authority in order that the team can collectively make the right decision. So this slide is just to show that how each one of those steps support our curiosity, resourceful, thoroughness, nurturing, and genuineness. So almost without exception, except under curious for number 10 and under resourceful for 1, it supports our DNA. So there's also another aspect I need to let you know. A good manager as a member of the team is well-rounded and flexible in style. Flexible in style, I already mentioned, personality style, knowledge style. He must know himself. He must be aware of his effect on other people. Has a balanced view of himself and not to have an ego problem. So typically, a manager who has an ego problem is not a very good leader. He accepts himself and he can identify the excellence in others. He respects the strength of others and he can harness conflict and he creates a learning environment. So our organization is about a learning environment. We are learning every day. In a well-balanced and a mature, well-balanced individual is a good manager. You are a good manager is because of who you are and not because of what you know. Thank you.